This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code HUGH at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. Back in June 2016, I had the privilege of speaking with a number of senior Hasselblad executives at the launch of a camera Hasselblad had to make, a clever, bold, and prudent combination of clean sheet design and parts bin raid called the X1D 50C. The company had taken the sensor and menu system of their flagship $27,500. I'll repeat that, $27,500 medium format camera announced just 2 years earlier. Their 50 megapixel digital single lens reflex H5D 50C and stuffed them into a radically different, thoroughly reconceived interchangeable lens mirrorless body with entirely new XCD lens mount for $9,000. 1/3 the price of the H5D 50C. As I said, a bold move, but a necessary move. 2 years earlier, 2014, Pentax had announced a direct competitor to the H5D 50C, their 50 megapixel medium format digital single lens reflex 645Z for less than 1/3 the price of the H5D 50C, $8,500. Far more concerning, however, was Canon's announcement the next year, 2015, still a year before the announcement of the X1D, of their all but identical resolution, 50.6 megapixel, full frame, 5DS and 5DSR digital single lens reflex twins for less than half the price of the Pentax, $3,700 and $3,900 respectively. The only difference between the two Canons was the removal of the optical low-pass filter in the more expensive arm. None of which stopped Fujifilm, a company with whom Hasselblad had closely partnered for their H-series system, from announcing just 3 months after the X1D their first ever medium format digital mirrorless camera, the also 50 megapixel GFX 50S for $7,000. But all of these cameras were already late to the game. And that was because Sony had launched, all the way back in 2013, the world's first consumer-focused full-frame interchangeable lens mirrorless cameras, the 24-megapixel A7 and 36-megapixel A7R, priced at $1,700 and $2,300 respectively. Now, I'd eventually crown the 42-megapixel A7R III the best medium format camera of that year. I got a lot of crap for it, but I was right. Still, the X1D offered Impeccable build quality, novel and beautiful industrial design, superb image quality, the best menu system in the business, fully touch enabled at that, and is still to this day, all in the smallest medium format body on the market. But it also arrived with a number of disadvantages, a number of disappointments beyond price relative to the next wave of competitors, which I've continued to note over the years, including relatively poor autofocus performance, poor operational speed, and limited lens selection at launch. The video performance was problematic too, but I was delighted when they removed it altogether. What made all of this more challenging, a bit maddening, maybe, for Hasselblad? What had arguably been the brand's core attribute and key differentiator since its birth in the 1940s, modularity, could not serve as a counterbalance to these deficits. The whole concept of modularity, from interchangeable backs to interchangeable finders, superseded by technology and therefore excised completely from this do or die reboot. It is not easy to manage the stewardship of an icon. None of which, I should mention, affected the launch of the X1D 50C. The company's entire first-year run sold out within 10 days. It was, and now remains, a lovely landscape and studio camera with a much wider array of lens choices now than when first launched. But the market evolved much more rapidly than Hasselblad could keep up. It would be another 3 years before the company introduced a minor set of updates in an X1D Mark II, none of which sufficiently addressed the system's primary shortcomings. 3 years after that, before delivering the far more thoroughly updated 102-megapixel X2D with solid in-body image stabilization, hybrid phase detection autofocus, permanent internal 1 terabyte SSD, which has saved my bacon more than once, a whopping 1x magnification 5.7 million dot EVF, which makes my day every time I peer through it, a robust rear tilting screen, an updated focus app, a number of next-generation XCD lenses, and the continuing absence of video. But for me personally, in spite of being blown away by what the X2D 100C could do, in spite of the brilliant image quality, build quality, industrial design, IBIS, weather sealing, the EVF, the 16-bit Hasselblad natural color solution, also best in the business in my book to this day, Hasselblad's more recent natural noise reduction, the additional headroom of the native 4:3 aspect ratio of the sensor for a given horizontal field of view compared to full-frame cameras. Even Hasselblad's best camera remained unsuitable for much of my personal work, my street work. Lovely, best I've ever used for urban landscape, but its leisurely operational speed and simply unreliable autofocus performance for most of my use cases in particular simply did not live up to my expectations and, more importantly, my needs on the street. Even with its new hybrid phase detection autofocus system, never mind the absence in that first release of it of continuous autofocus, subject detection, eye autofocus, you get the idea. That is, until this morning's announcement of Hasselblad's $7,400 X2D Mark II 100C, which is finally the breakthrough camera for the company I've been waiting for. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And before we go any further, a quick announcement from our Department of Crass Commerce that we have just one spot left in our October Streets of New York Street Photography Workshop, just a couple more in our December Streets of Tokyo Workshop. So if you're interested, please do hop over to 3bmep.com/streets to learn more and grab a spot while you can. Okay. Back to the Hasselblad X2D Mark II, and I will just cut to the chase. First and foremost, the Mark II's autofocus is dramatically better than that of its predecessor. Hybrid phase detection autofocus now works. Continuous autofocus works. Subject detection works. The ability to toggle subject detection on and off and easily works. The incorporation of LiDAR offering truly outstanding performance in low light. To my astonishment and delight, the autofocus now does the business for my jam. Second, the X2D2 is significantly faster than the first generation X2D. Hold that thought. Neither of these advances makes the camera as fast and sure to autofocus or operate as the best full-frame camera systems across all use cases, most obviously sports and wildlife, but this is an inevitable consequence of the camera's additional 41 megapixels worth of data streams, probably not a significant update to the processor, and I think it fair to say the years-long head start other manufacturers have in experience with hybrid phase detection technology and practically annual processor upgrades, even the introduction of dedicated AI autofocus chips. But no matter. The bottom line is that with these two updates alone, the X2D Mark II with the latest XCD glass, their V series of 75p, and their two pinnacle E series zooms, hold that thought, is the first modern Hassie I could use as my only street camera and be happy. Well, save for the schlep, hold that thought too. Let's get into it. First, much of the operational speed improvement comes down to a few really excellent tweaks. A, the addition of a joystick for 1, quick autofocus point navigation, especially useful for those of us who never like poking ourselves in the face with our thumbs while tracing across the rear screen to achieve the same end. 2, ditto, navigating the menu without taking one's eye away from the EVF. And 3, the addition of an extra function button below the joystick that I use to recenter the focus point. These are all welcome additions. B, a front scroll wheel now customizable when pressed, which I use to toggle human detection on or off. Easy peasy. And C, the ability, yay, to set ISO to auto even when in manual mode, that is, when setting aperture and shutter speed directly. I've mapped ISO to a press of the rear scroll wheel so that at least there's some consistency between my Hassies and my Leicas. Still, I do wish the joystick were located higher on the back of the camera, where the sweep of my thumb would more naturally land on it, without having to shift my grip. Same thing for the new function button below it. I also wish Hasselblad would add highlight-weighted metering as an option, although it remains the case that Claudia and I dial in the exposure triangle manually. I have yet to find a metering system on any camera that works as well as full manual control on the street in any mode, but I keep hoping. Some combination of highlight-weighted metering plus AI would probably do the trick, and probably will do the trick sooner than we might imagine. Second, apart from these two major improvements, there have been a number of other functional tweaks. A, Hasselblad now quotes 10, this is crazy, 10 full stops of IBIS up from 7, even as they've been able to shave 55 grams from the first-gen X2D. That makes the Mark II not only lighter than its predecessor, but lighter than all of Fujifilm's interchangeable lens GF cameras too. Bravo, Hasselblad. But about that IBIS. If one defines each additional stop of in-body image stabilization, or lens IS for that matter, as the ability to have the shutter speed beginning at the old reciprocal rule, 1 over the focal length, while avoiding camera shake blur, then I must confess that I personally have never seen a camera that could give me more than 5 or 6 actual stops. Of course, it is just as true that the results will always depend on things quite beyond this basic rule of thumb, things like total weight of the camera with lens, center of gravity, ergonomics, and whether or not one has eaten his or her Wheaties in the morning. And so it was with the brand new 35-100E Hasselblad also introduced this morning. I was able to coax 5 stops below 1/125th of a second down to 1/4, but that was it. For comparison's sake, I was able to get down to a 1/4 second as well with my Lens IS only Q343, that camera and integrated lens being much smaller and lighter, so a very good performance for both cameras, each in their own way. But I was able to squeeze out an additional 2 stops to 1 full second with our Leica SL3, mated to the smaller and lighter Apo Summicron 90mm f2, and hold this thought for another video altogether, OM Systems OM3 with their tiny 12-24mm f2.8 Pro zoom. B. What is unequivocally successful are the improvements to the already robust rear panel. 1. That panel now tilts a full 90 degrees for excellent waist level viewing and composing. 2. Making it even better, it now fully clears the EVF so that one can compose waist level shots without blockage. I wish all camera manufacturers were as thoughtful. 3. For the first time, it also tilts down somewhere between 40 and 45 degrees for overhead shooting. I also wish, however, that one could tilt the rear panel up from the top when holding the camera in portrait mode at a low angle a la Fujifilm's GFX cameras. I find that really useful and it's really quick. C. Focus 2. Their mobile app has become world-class in terms of design, speed, reliability, and in-app post-processing if you have the horsepower to drive it. I needed to upgrade to an M4 iPad, and you don't mind what it doesn't have. Which is to say, actually, I think it's the best companion app in the market at the moment, but I wish Hasselblad would either 1. Work more closely with editing software companies to fully integrate all of their unique capabilities for managing, correcting, and enhancing 211 megabyte raw files, and to make them available earlier so that I and people like me wouldn't have to change our tools or modify our workflows at all. Or 2. Round out the app with functionality that matches the best of what is already out there, from catalog management and cloud syncing. Claudia and I both really find cloud syncing important, to generative AI masking. We also use that. And distraction removal. We also use that. More robust perspective controls. We use that. And AI portrait retouching. We don't really use that. D. Hasselblad's ambition and positioning for HDR has captured my imagination. There are a number of provisos and caveats when switching on HDR, but this is not your father's HDR. The idea now is creating imagery designed to be as brilliant as a Kodachrome slide really intrigues me. And more to the point, I can see the extra pop. I'm excited. I need to spend more time with it. E. Perhaps a necessity-driven virtue, and I've already said this, I'll say it again anyway. I like that the X2D Mark II continues the company's practice of omitting video capability altogether. That's because I'm a purist. My photography gear, save at the very beginning of my video journey, has always been different from my video gear because they're two very different things with two very different sets of needs. Moving on. 3rd, Hasselblad has made a few aesthetic changes I quite like. A. The Hasselblad wordmark is now the same color as the body. I appreciate this because 1. It is understated. And 2, I'd begun to tape over my cameras anyway, but this looks nicer, cleaner, and remains difficult to discern from even a few feet away. B. The body color is a bit lighter, somewhere between black and dark gray, which I also enjoy. I think it's quite nice. And C. The grip texture has been refined, and okay, it works. 4th, there's that price, $7,400. This is 10% less than the original X2D 100C as of yesterday. How often have you seen a price drop like that lately, especially given the current tariff unpleasantness? I guess it doesn't hurt that the X2D Mark II is still made in Sweden. The company's relatively aggressive pricing becomes even more apparent, however, when you compare it to the X1D launched in 2016 adjusted for inflation. That $9,000 then would be a bit more than 12 large today. 5th, a few punch list items do remain, however. A. The EVF proximity sensor remains defiantly recalcitrant, too often refusing to automatically switch from rear panel to EVF without requiring me to mash my face around the EVF eyepiece until it finally recognizes I'm there. It is marginally better, but it really ought to be a non-issue. Full stop. B. Although the X2D Mark II is operationally faster than the first generation, there's one exception to this general observation, and it is noticeable. It takes the Mark II 2 or 3 Mississippis to process an HDR image before it can be reviewed in camera. I do hope this can be resolved through firmware, but I don't know that it can. C. Like every other camera I've ever had in hand, which uses a CF Express card, that card does heat up, and it did just a few minutes ago on the S1 II. It's my daily driver. Finally, D. I don't understand Hasselblad's insistence on using their proprietary strap lugs. I wish they'd switch to something like those found on the Leica SL3, Fujifilm X-H2 and GFX100 or Panasonic's Lumix S1 and S5 series. But enough about all of that. What about the competition? I'll start here. Even though the Mark II is smaller and lighter than any other medium format mirrorless interchangeable lens camera of which I am aware, it's still bigger, heavier, more expensive, and slower than most full-frame cameras, all APS-C cameras, and all Micro Four Thirds cameras. Although it is, interestingly enough, 13 grams lighter than my Leica SL3 with battery. Speaking of Leica and full-frame, let's stay for a moment with full-frame competitors and talk about lenses. Hasselblad's latest and best XCD prime lenses are now terrific. Relatively small, light, optically excellent, with autofocus smooth and quiet. I'm talking their V series and the 75P in particular. Their 20 to 35E and just announced $4,500 companion 35 to 100E Pinnacle series zooms are the very best that Hassi offers, priced to match, and outstanding. Hassi glass is now convincingly smaller, lighter, optically superb, yet less expensive than Leica's best $5,000 a pop Apo Summicron SL Primes, and even more expensive $6,800 990-gram Super Vario Elmar 16 to 35 f3.5 to 4.5, Vario Elmar at 6400 1.1 kilo 24 to 90 millimeter f2.8 to f4, and $7,800 1.4 kilo 90 to 280 millimeter f2.8 for aspherical Holy Trinity zooms. The thing that blew my mind during my done under protest near minimum focusing distance testing in the Bat Studio, the 35 to 100E at blood vessel popping pixel peeping up to the 1600% magnification limit of Lightroom Classic mopped the floor with Sony's 24 to 70mm f2.8 GM2 in completely artificial conditions. Because in the real world, used in anger, printed, all of the 102 megapixel medium format and 61 megapixel full frame cameras and even the 40 megapixel APS-C cameras with the best lenses for each of them out there are astounding. This 48-inch print on the long side in our kitchen, cropped from this full frame taken with our A7R5 and the 24 to 70 GM2. On the other hand, the full-frame segment offers a dramatically broader and deeper selection of lenses at every price and image quality point. At the high end, because that's what rocks my boat, think Sigma's recently announced 200mm f2 or last year's incredible 500mm f5.6, available in Sony and Leica L-mount. Think Sony's 50 to 150mm f2 or their extraordinary 300mm f2.8. Think Nikon's latest Nikkor Z 24 to 70 2.8 S Mark II, or their brilliant and light super telephotos like the Nikkor Z 400mm f4.5 VRS. They must do something to cut down on those individual letters. Think third-party manufacturers, most especially Viltrox, with its staggeringly good $900 135mm f1.8, or at the other end, their 200mm, but excellent anyway, 50mm f2 Air, or TT Artisan's shockingly competent sub-$200 340-gram 75mm f2. In other words, whatever the mount these days, full-frame cameras and lower offer considerable price, size, weight, speed, autofocus reliability, and lens ecosystem advantages over medium format, while suffering very few compromises. Of course, the X2D Mark II's most direct competition are Fujifilm's $8,300 949-gram 102-megapixel GFX100 II and $5,500 883-gram, also 102-megapixel GFX100 S2. Both have their compensations, including video, doesn't matter to me, and a greater number of dedicated switchgear for marginally faster manual control. The GFX100 II is the same price as the X2D II. The S2 is significantly less expensive, $2,800 less expensive than the X2D II. But from where I sit, it is the more expensive 100 Mark II, no S, with that tilt adapter for the huge 9.44 million dot EVF that is the more intriguing option and worth what is actually closer to $3,500 more than the S2, only $600 more than the Hassi. Still, both Fuji cameras are bigger and heavier, their menu system about as bad as you can get these days, neither offering the sense of occasion every time one picks one up that the Hassi does. In the end, however, they are all capable of stellar imagery. The Fujis also captured 16 bits, although I would give the nod absolutely for industrial design, menu system, build quality, and color to the X2D too. Well, size and weight as we've already discussed. Which leaves us where precisely? I'll wrap it up and recap this way. If you want the best color science in the business, the best menu system in the business, unsurpassed build quality, unsurpassed industrial design, unsurpassed image quality in the autofocusing medium format mirrorless ILC space, unmatched image quality compared to the full-frame mirrorless ILC space, nosebleed image quality beyond the best APS-C and Micro Four Thirds segments, but have been waiting for autofocus and operational speed sufficiently performant to allow you to comfortably shoot anything short of sports and wildlife, and you have both the inclination and the means to acquire one, the X2D Mark II is finally what you've been waiting for. Me personally, it is what I've been hoping for. As I said at the outset, this is the first modern Hasselblad with which I'd feel comfortable as my only camera for my street photography, paired especially with the XCD 75mm f3.4p and or 38V 2.5 in a pocket to give me the full-frame equivalent fields of view and shallowest depths of field of a 60mm f2.8 and 28mm f2 respectively in a pretty darned compact package. I'd have a more versatile 16-bit capture, 102 megapixel interchangeable lens alternative to my pair of Leica Q3s, an autofocusing weather-sealed 16-bit 102 megapixel alternative to my M11, a 16-bit 102 megapixel alternative to my SL3. If I didn't feel like changing lenses on the street, I would pair the X2D2 with the 35-100E, call it a day, and never look back. Well, except for my back and shoulders, neck, wrist. But I'd be remiss not to point out that tiny, inexpensive cameras in the right hands are capable of amazing imagery, especially when one leaves the world of speculation for the world of imagination, composition, and intention. The one thought I'll leave with you before you head over to my other video on the 35-100E, although you get the picture already, is this. Hasselblad has come out swinging. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code HUGH at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comment section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video called via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost view affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.